For the longest time, I believe as local South Africans, we have always known that our leadership in our country is not as perfect. It's not as good leadership. Whether we can call it weak leadership, whether we can call it a not superior leadership, whatever leadership we can come up with different words to call it, the leadership in South Africa, the government is not as superior as many people would like to paint the leadership of South Africa. And today I have a clip of Vusi Thembekwayo exposing deep hidden secrets of the psyches of the leadership, why our leaders are acting like this, what happened, and also explaining some economical stuff involving why our leaders are acting the way they are the way they are acting. But I want to play the clip. I want you to listen to him and understand him properly. Because even the white people who were interviewing him, they were sitting back listening to him because this man is worth listening. Listen to this.
South Africa is not working at the moment. What went wrong?
Wow, it's such a big question. It's a big question because it's not only multifaceted, but it's also multi-generational. So, I think one of the things we have to do is to resist the urge to simplify an issue because we might not have the tools to deal with its complexity, right? So there are a few things to say. First, South Africa wasn't perfect, right? So we need to set that aside immediately. And the reason that's important, Donald, is because certainly it's been my experience that the minute you criticize what's not working, what's thrown back at you is, but the other thing wasn't perfect either. So we need to go, well, we know that wasn't perfect. What we're talking about here, and if I understand your question, is what's been the reason for the degrade? And the decay has been quite marked, particularly over the recent past. It's actually very simple. It's leadership. It's not complex. And we can throw that about and we can deal with the complexity of that. But at the heart of it is South Africa has a dire crisis in leadership.
And do you blame the system or weak leaders?
I think the two are incestuous. I think poorly designed systems create and breed the kind of leaders that we've seen in South Africa. And that's such a big word again. Sure, Donald, this word system. So, when we talk about system, what do we actually mean? And I think that there are a number of things South Africans don't think about, which is encapsulated in the word system are some externalities which we have to deal with, right? You can't deal with the very marked decay in the quality of leadership we've seen in South Africa, particularly stewardship. We've suffered from having good stewards, people who understand the responsibility of the day and who are seized with making sure that they create a future better than the present that they inherit. Or that they inhabit, rather. And a big part of that system is our education system, which in and of itself is a completely different conversation. But the mass miseducation of South Africans, particularly those of lower strata without economic means, has played right into the hands of those who have enjoyed and some might even say have designed the decay that we are seeing today. We have to, as South Africans, lose the naivety of presuming that because things aren't working, that's the case for everybody. Things not working is something working for somebody whose agenda is making sure things don't work. Mm-hmm. And so we have to be alive to that there's constantly an agenda, especially if it's one that doesn't suit our collective good.
So just to dive a bit deeper into that, do you think the ANC actually has an agenda of keeping people uneducated?
No, I don't think that they have a deliberate, intentional agenda to ensure the miseducation of the masses. And I hate that word, the masses, but let's go with it. But I do think that it's an unfortunate ally to their political strategy. It's one that plays nicely into how they have come to do politics, sadly. Yeah. So I don't think that they wake up in the morning and go, how do we miseducate, an entire generation? But I think that as the quality of their body politic decays, a miseducation plays into that agenda, because then the engagement with the public and with the voting fodder is not as robust as it otherwise would have been if they were dealing with a cohort in civilians whose average level of critical thinking was such that they would be engaged with some of these issues differently to what we are seeing today. And I know that's a lot of big English, but the short answer is no, they're not doing it on purpose. But yes, it does play into their strategy. And so, so be it.
They're doing it sort of indirectly, if I understand you correctly.
Even then, I don't think they're doing it at all. I just think that I suppose the question becomes, how much credit do you give a bad captain? If a ship sails in a particular direction and hits the iceberg, right, and the captain didn't even know the ship was sailing in that direction, do you blame him for hitting the iceberg? And that's kind of South Africa's problem. We're dealing with load shedding, which is an iceberg, when actually the problem we should be dealing with is, how did we get here in the first place? Direction, right?
Yeah.
And so a big part of what we have to contest amongst ourselves and contend with is, before we even have a question and a conversation about outcomes, let's just have a question and a conversation about quality of inputs. We've got a severe quality of inputs problem, just quality of inputs in terms of the talent pool from which we're drawing people who go into the public service, in particular into the political class. And as a consequence of that, these are some of the things that we're seeing. It's a bit like it's that second level of ignorance, when somebody doesn't know that they don't know. Let me say to you this way, Donald. A fortnight ago, I was on a plane, and and there was this fellow on the plane sitting adjacent me, across me, and he was reading some literature, which piqued my interest. It seemed to be something about banking, and as you know, one of my businesses in the financial services space. So I thought this was interesting. And then I kind of, as he went to the bathroom, my eye wandered yonder over the aisle to have a look at what this fellow was reading, and he was reading like grade 5 level of information about banking. What is a bank? What is a bank account? What is fractional reserve banking? This is what he's reading in a file. So I thought that's interesting.
As for me, I've said what I wanted to say about the leadership of South Africa. Whether the previous leadership, even if you talk about President Jacob Zuma, even him included in what we're talking about, he has never been the best leader. Let nobody mislead you. Let nobody mislead you and try to act like he was the best leader. The best leader we've ever had, a black leader, was Nelson Mandela. After that, things started went sideways. Even President Thabo Mbeki was better than President Zuma. You can go and read the studies. You can go and check the information I'm talking about. It will be proven. But we've never had the best of leaders. We've never had, and I don't think we'll ever have best of the best leaders, because I don't think the people who control the world, the people who have these politicians by the balls, really want South Africa to have competitive leaders. But it is what it is. Thank you very much.